Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to State of the Galaxy. This is episode 13, and in keeping with that number, had some pretty bad luck getting people rounded up to do the show today, so as far as I'm aware, it's just going to be me. So I'm just going to hop right into it. A couple weeks back we had a little stream from the developers. It was entitled, actually it didn't have a title, but there was a segment in there titled State of the Galaxy. This is as good a time as any to say I'm a little bit annoyed that they ripped off the name of this show. But to be fair, I ripped off the name of this show from a StarCraft panel show called State of the Game. So, I mean, whatever. I can't be too upset about it. So let me talk about that stream a little bit. To me, it felt like they were really satisfied with 3.0. And just taken directly from my notes as I was watching, I did make a note that the word story kept coming up, and that pretty much spelled the theme for everything that they talked about. It was basically all story for the entire stream long, which for a player like me, that's really concerning. The reason I have a problem with it is story gets people in the door, story gets people interested, but once the story is consumed, I don't think that people are just going to stay around to keep playing the game. I think gameplay changes keep people invested. The other thing is, and I'm playing devil's advocate here with this point, what's keeping players from, or even potential players, what's keeping potential players from just watching cutscenes from your game on YouTube and never playing your game when your whole focus is story? I'm a little bit worried about that from a health of the game standpoint. Let's see. On a side note, they showed a couple of the cutscenes from Ziost. The female Sith warrior sounds like she's on Quaaludes. The male Jedi Knight had a lot more, I guess, emotion in his voice, which is odd, given that one is a Sith and the other one's a Jedi. We're obviously not going to defeat the Emperor in 3.2 unless, like, the game is coming to an end. So any sort of teasing they did about where the story is going to go on that stream is just silly. I have not yet played 3.2 on the PTS, to be honest with you. And the reason for that is I reactivated my WoW account, which I've been doing when I haven't been raiding in this game. So honestly, I can't comment intelligently on the direction the story is going. I'm a little surprised that they're just going straight for Emperor storyline, considering that's kind of... he's where I expect the game to end at some point. Like, I don't know what kind of threat you have beyond the Emperor. So other than story, they talked about a couple of gameplay changes. Travel. They're, quote, making travel a lot easier for players. So after 3.2, once players arrive on a planet, all travel points are going to be unlocked, which by that they mean the speeder paths, which, again, player like me, really don't care about that. Holy crap, do I not care about that. But there are people who are just leveling up characters all the time. And if they're not running KDY, and they're not PvPing, or they're not one of the, like, couple dozen people per server who play GSF, then yeah, that probably affects their lives to a point. The quick travel cooldown's going to be reduced, apparently, to 6 minutes without the perk and 0 with the perk. So that's pretty cool, actually. I can conceive of a scenario in which I would make use of that. It's few and far between, to be honest, because, again, I don't spend that much time planet-side. Apparently getting close to quick travel points will unlock them automatically, which I fear is just going to break a lot of stuff on release. This being like the first thing they lead in with as far as their gameplay change presentation, got me worried. My worries were assuaged somewhat by the combat team's communication on the 3.2 PTS forum. They seem a little bit better than they were in 3.12 and 3.11, so that's good. They are giving a little bit. They're giving us a little bit more hints as to their reasoning, but I'll get into that in a minute. They also talked about the outfits designer. Apparently, just costs credits. I hope that kind of siphons the money out of the wildly inflated economy, which is inflated for a number of interesting reasons, Asation being chief among them. There's going to be a maximum of 16 slots for outfits, meaning, and I was a little unclear on this, maybe somebody who's been on the PTS can confirm. The 16 slots refers to 16 different looks, or 16 statted sets. I'm pretty sure it's looks, because it wouldn't make sense if it was like real gear that you wear for stats. And the first slot is free. But as far as their presentation goes, that was it as far as, I don't know, features, gameplay. I don't count Ziost and like the continuation of that story as a feature or gameplay. It's just a planet on which you do quests. We have lots and lots of those. Yeah, 16 different looks, thank you. We have lots and lots of those. It's just questing. We're not going to level up as far as I know. I think I would have heard that. So really, you could get away with just not doing it. People are going to do it, sure, but I don't know who's this marketed to. Well, I do know who it's marketed to. It's marketed to people who play the game specifically for the story. What I'm getting at is it's hard to retain that type of player once they're done. Beyond that, they said exclusive amounts for Cantina event tours for those of us who can make it to those. They're going to spread to people. They can be spread to people who know the people who went there. So basically, everybody is going to have one if they really, really care about it. Then they talked about the Choose Your Path promotion, which is just a buy Shadow of Revan and subscribe promotion, I think. I have not looked into it at all once I realized there was nothing for me there. And they ended their presentation by saying 3.2 is coming up, go play. Alright, so that's all I have to say about their presentation. To sum up, story, outfit designer, that's it. So nothing for hardcore players, nothing for people who are interested in gameplay, discussion, or anything like that. It was all about lore. Which, fine, whatever. The real meat of the PTS, or at least the type of thing you can get into, a player like me can get interested in, was in the balancing threads. So, and this is just something I'm going to comment on because I play the spec and because I made a video specifically about this problem. I'm just going to read this verbatim from the Pyro thread. For forthcoming class balance threads, we're going to redirect our focus on community feedback by being transparent with our update initiatives and outlining the definitions that outline these updates. Then they define an update can be quality of life, utility, or combat balance. Quality of life being flow and feel, utility being functionality, and combat balance is obviously how much damage or healing you're damage reduction you have. So for Pyro, they focused on quality of life, which is the flow and feel, which is the primary thing I complained about in my thoughts on Pyro video, which is good. That's great. And speaking specifically as to their the changes they're making, what they're doing is better than 3.1.1, but it is not as good as before. And it really perplexes me. I don't know. I cannot conceive of a reason why they're digging their heels in on reverting Flame Barrage. So, let's see. For Pyrotech, Rain of Fire has been redesigned. Kinetic and energy attacks deal 5% additional damage to burning targets. Flamethrower spreads your periodic incendiary missile effect. Superheated Flamethrower down to 2 stacks. So that now you only have to stack it up twice per rotation. So that's going to take care of your heat problems, just based on the 3.1.1 changes. The problem is it's making you rapid shot, and I don't know why they want you to rapid shot. If they want to lower your damage, and that's why they want you to rapid shot, then just make your stuff do make Pyrotech's abilities do less damage. I don't understand what was wrong with the rotation as it existed before. So that was the first round of changes. So they also fixed the set bonus bug, which has been in the game since 3.0's release, which caused Pyro specifically, not Plasma Tech Vanguard. They get a no, that's the wrong way to put it. It means your 6-piece set bonus, which gives you a free crit on Immolate. It doesn't get consumed by Immolate. The other thing they fixed was each stack of Superheated Flamethrower now increases the damage dealt by Flamethrower by 25%, which, since it stacks up to 2, will bring it up to 50, which is good. 50 is higher than actually... 50 is higher than you can get right now, which is, I believe, 45. Superheated Flamethrower is there. 15 times 3, 45. The problem is they changed Burnout such that you lose a 10% multiplier on Flamethrower, so it's roughly the same. So that's cool. Also, Burnout now additionally reduces the heat cost of Scorch by 5. I'm confused as to this change because Scorch is an ability you cast once every 30 seconds. So I'm not sure what rotational problems or what heat problems they're trying to address by reducing the heat cost of an ability that costs 15 heat that you only cast once every 30 seconds. It's strange, and it seems like they're going through a lot more work than they need to be doing in order to bring the spec into a playable God, I'm struggling vainly in search of a word. And just to make it playable. All they had to do was revert Flame Barrage to work on Rail Shot in addition to Immolate. But instead of doing that, they've made all these other changes, which are strange. They took a bunch of damage off of Flaming Fist and Rail Shot, and I think Immolate back in 3.1.1. Now they're adding it back in with the new Rain of Fire, which instead of doing what it lists here is going to add kinetic and energy damage to your burning targets. It seems like they're making their work harder than it needs to be for Pyro. As to their other changes, I do play Juggernaut, so I can only somewhat comment on this. They're changing Rage, which I just really don't care about. I don't care for Rage. I think it does slightly less damage than Vengeance. What they should be doing is buffing Vengeance's sustained damage. Hopefully in a way that doesn't make Vengeance just way too strong in PvP. Right now, Vengeance is in a great spot in PvP, so I understand their reluctance to mess with it. Because if you give them too much damage, then they're just the best class. Because they're already very defensive and have a lot of utility. The place where I think it's safe to add damage to Vengeance is in the dots for Impale and for Scream. The reason I think it's safe there is because, one, they do so little damage already. They do like 200-ish damage a tick, and they only stay on the target for like 6 seconds. You could easily double that, or even triple that, without affecting PvP too much. The other reason why it's safer to buff Vengeance's dots than it would be to, say, buff Hatred or Madness is because Vengeance's dot spread is much smaller and slightly less rotational, in that you don't need to slam to do your damage. I mean, you should slam to do your damage, but it's not as rotational as, say, Deathfield, which is the dot spread for Madness and Hatred. Anyway, like I said, they could easily like triple the damage of the dots off of Impale and Force Scream without I hope, hurting PvP too much. And the other changes, let's see. They're buffing... Oh, they're making some utility changes to Lethality Operative and Virulent Sniper. They're just buffing the slow off of your corrosive grenades, which, okay, great. And then they're changing scatter bonds for engineering, which is, who cares, because that's the most... Until that spec gets yet another rework, it's going to be too impractical to use in a real scenario. You can use it on, like, Master Blaster, and, I don't know, any other boss where they just stay still. But outside of that, it's awkward and not... there's no benefit to using it over, say, Virulence or Marksman. Did I talk about the 30-meter low slash for Deception? No, I did not. I do not play Assassin. I only just read about it today when I checked the forums. Can you define for me what you're talking about, which spec was, quote, supposedly fine and now they're wasting 3 patches on it instead of other specs? Do you mean Pyro? Because I agree. Pyro was fine. All they had to do was fix the set bonus. Fixing the set bonus would have brought Pyro in line with Plasma Tech and would have given BioWare better numbers to base their decisions off of. Instead, they destroyed Pyro in 3.1.1 without changing the set bonus. And now they have to wrangle a new solution out of, I don't know, whatever their reluctance is to change their old decision. They just need to unchange Flame Mirage, and it's fine. Excuse me, I'm going to be drinking a little bit more because I got no one to talk with. Okay, low slash. I can look at that right now. Low slash is their incapacitate, correct? It's like oh wow. Well, it's a 1.5 second. It's a 1.5 second stun, right? And it breaks on damage, so. See, this is odd to me because they took a lot of range away from Hatred. Is this only for Deception? This 30-meter low slash? Let me give you guys some context. I'll get an image up for you. You can see that in a screenshot from the PTS. Low slash having a 30-meter range. Leave that up there for a few moments more. Sorry, I captured the image off of my browser and I can't keep it up there the whole time before I switch back to chat. Or else goofy things will happen. No, I know you can force lightning with recklessness. Huh. I don't know, I'm okay with that. Deception, from what I understand, Deception is not the flavor of the month for Assassin PvP. It is useful, but in its current form, Hatred is much, much, much more useful. So that's what people are playing. Did they say anything about fixing the disparity between Serenity and Hatred? Because I hear Serenity does a lot more damage. That's what I want to know. I mean, I say that's what I want to know, but I don't really care. I don't play that class, and it's not terribly useful in PvE. The areas in which it is useful, other classes can bring similar, if not better, utility. I also just don't PvP that much. Not in this game, anyway. Okay. So that's basically all I want to talk about on the PTS. My only commentary on that whole low slash thing is whatever. It's probably okay. But I can't, like I said, I can't comment intelligently on it. I don't play the class. I don't play against the class that much. And that's for an area of the game in which I don't spend a lot of my time. Alright, here's what I think about the future of the game. This is going to be as fair as I can possibly make it, but I'm not going to, like, skimp on the honesty. Like I said before, I reactivated my WoW account, and the things I can do in that decade-old game make me metaphorically weep for what could have been in this game. So let's talk specifics. There is no offensive dispel in Star Wars. There is no mind control in Star Wars. There are no reliable positioning mechanics in Star Wars. By that I mean the engine doesn't trust the client enough for them to design things that require specific positioning within a tight window. I'll give you some context. I did a 5-man boss in WoW wherein fire waves spread out from these things the boss puts on the ground. And the mechanic is you jump over them and then you don't take damage. And it works. It works unless you're lagging severely, like 500 plus ping, it works. No way does that work in Star Wars. There's just no way. Client-server desyncs happen in this game all the time. And you could never implement a mechanic like that in Star Wars and have people pass it consistently. Not with the way the client and the server interact. I don't know if that's something that they can change given enough time and engineering. If they can, that is like priority one, because that is responsible for so much bullshit that the ops and encounter designers have to deal with. For example, Tyrans in Dread Palace, both in his own fight and in the Dreadmasters. For that matter, any boss that teleports, client-server desyncs ensure that every once in a while players will see the boss not where it's supposed to be. Client-server desyncs are also responsible for, say, false telegraphs. Like with the pseudo-random violence on HK, sometimes it's pointing where it isn't. He'll be pointing somewhere and spraying a different direction, and you won't realize it unless you're taking damage. I mean, client-server desyncs that would be priority one if it is indeed fixable. And the reason why I heavily encourage them to fix it, like I said before, story brings people into this game, but I don't think it'll keep people in for the long run. They'll consume the story very fast. In fact, story gets consumed probably faster than any other content they could possibly make. I bet the outfit designer has more legs on it than story in this game, because it gets done in hours. People do it. It's like for Shadow of Revan, that was a one-day thing at most. I mean, it's a one-day thing at most for players who have the time. Obviously, if you have a very hectic working life, you only have like a couple hours to play, I'm sure you got maybe a couple days worth, but not much more than that. And once you are done, you've seen it, and it's consumed, and you only go through it more times if you're a die-hard superfan. And die-hard superfans are not the people they should be worried about keeping. It's the people who are interested and who would play, or who would keep playing if they found it fun. I'm not saying Star Wars isn't fun, because it is. The problem is an MMO needs to change every once in a while in order to stay fun. And Shadow of Revan did not change the game enough for people who've been playing a long time. And I should modify that statement. Shadow of Revan did not change enough for players like me. That's like the entire reason I changed from a sniper to a power tech. Well, the other reason is the power tech is more viable in this tier of content. Don't worry. I'm not announcing that I'm quitting or anything. I'm still going to be playing as much as I had before. But I'm worried. I'm worried that eventually, let's say come Nightmare, I will be able to read the writing on the wall that there's nothing for me to sink my teeth into. And I'm not talking about Nightmare content. I'm talking about gameplay changes. I want to have fun while I'm doing things other than raiding. I'm worried that there's not going to be enough of that for me to stay interested. And I don't know. I'm very invested in this game, as is obvious from anybody who's watched my stream, who's watched the videos that I make, and watched these shows. So it's nothing that I'm going to quit the game over just yet. I want to know what's in the future, and it has to be more than just story for a guy like me. If they announce something like GSF, I don't know. It's hard for me to even say I'd be excited about that, because there's another worry there that they're going to fragment the player base. So here's a couple of things that they need to do to assuage my fears. They need to announce whatever it is they've got cooking to ameliorate the queue system. Because right now, frankly, the queue system for basically every level of the game, PvP, GSF, flashpoints and operations, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad unless you're basically on Harbinger. If you're on Harbinger, I'm sure it's fine. But I'm on pot 5, and I would wager a majority of this game is not on Harbinger yet. So for the majority of the game, the queue system's not all that great. Whatever it is they've got cooking that's better than cross-server, they need to talk about it, and they need to talk about it soon. That alone will help stabilize the game's population, and I say stabilize the game's population not knowing anything about the metrics. I don't know if the game is losing players, gaining players, or staying relatively the same. I'm saying this will head it off at the pass, because eventually, like all MMOs, player rates will start to go down. What gets that, and we've seen this happen in this game before, what speeds that along is if people don't have anybody to play with. It's a self-perpetuating problem. So that's the first realistic thing that I think they need to do. Other things they need to do is they need to take a long, hard look at the reward structure for activity in this game. Currently, there is, and I believe I talked about this last episode with Justin, there is no compelling reward for a player like me to do this or this. I have absolutely no reason to run flashpoints on any character, no matter what. Because the rewards I get from them are trash. They are just trash. And no good player would be caught dead in gear like that. My diagnosis is, or at least my proposed solution is, hard mode flashpoints should drop, if not story mode gear, then like 186 gear tokens. 186 gear tokens with... Yeah, I like doing the content, Heather, but I don't have any reason to do it. Also, nobody queues for it. So, I don't know. There not being a reward structure contributes heavily to people not queuing for it. Also, the expectation that you won't get a group contributes heavily to people not queuing for a group. They need to make it like it was a level 50 and just give you gear tokens. Story mode, as it exists right now for operations, is so easy that I would not be offended or bothered at all if hard mode flashpoints gave out story mode tokens. In fact, I would be elated if hard mode flashpoints gave out story mode tokens, because then I can actually start gearing my alts in a reasonable amount of time without taking gear from alt runs. Death and Taxes does not run as many runs a week as many other high-level guilds. We basically have 2 a week, and that's pretty much it. And they're exclusively hard mode. Most of us are, like, on our mains, are getting very near to hitting the gear pinnacle. I'm like 1 mod away on this character, for example. So maybe once we hit that, we'll be able to start gearing alts from our hard modes, but up till now, it's been basically nothing unless I want to pug. I don't really want to pug. I would pug if the comms were worth it. I would pug if I got tokens. That's basically the long and short of it. So since players like me, good players, are not queuing for this stuff, I'm sure the success rate is lower. Like, there's no way the success rate isn't slower or isn't lower for content like this because good players don't want to queue for it. I don't know. Seems like a good solution to me. I'm open to suggestions, of course, but the reward structure for Group Finder PvE to include hard mode flashpoints is trash, and they need to seriously buff it. Honestly, they should probably just get rid of the very notion of lettered mods, at least for lettered mods and inefficient enhancements, at least for DPS and healers. I understand that tanks want lettered mods in this tier just to have the extra HP, and that's something they can, I don't know, if they decide to do something like this, that's something that can be hammered down then. PvP reward structure. I can't really comment intelligently on that, to be honest. I've got a full set of Exhumed and like odds and ends of Dark Reaver on my Juggernaut, which is probably my most geared PvP character. It feels slow if you're only doing regs, which I suppose is the point. And but it feeling slow is kind of bad because it's, I don't know, I enjoy the regular war zones. I don't particularly enjoy Arena. I didn't enjoy it in WoW. And this is not me saying bring back ranked 8v8, by the way, because I know for a fact ranked 8v8 was the least popular max level feature that they ever implemented. It was basically a couple, 3, 4 teams per server queued for it, and an infinitesimally small section of the max level population queued for rank war zones. So I'm fine with Arena existing, I just don't like playing it. So it's hard for me to get motivated to gear up my character when I know it's just going to take forever. But, I mean, that's the grind of it. People seem to enjoy it, I suppose. So I can't really offer any suggestions as to that. GSF is another story. I think the reward structure for GSF needs a serious overhaul, but not in the requisition acquisition. I did not intend to have that line up so well. It needs to have rewards outside of GSF. It needs to tie into the main game. I think it's a fun game. It also needs a balance pass, to be honest. There are certain components, like I'm looking at one right now, rapid fire laser cannon. That's a beginner's trap, and you should never upgrade it. And on ships where it comes default, you should get rid of it as soon as possible. It's a piece of shit weapon. That's just the way it is. And there should not be components like that, because honestly, you would never know that it's bad unless you ask somebody who knew. I mean, you have to either do that or find out for yourself through practice, because the current meta, it's just a terrible weapon, and there's honestly there's literally zero benefit to using it. Another beginner's trap that's like less obvious is the very idea of damage reduction itself. A lot of the best weapons have 100% armor penetration, which makes all damage reduction, even through cooldowns, it nullifies it completely. And armor penetration happens to be passive on most weapons that have it, so it's on all the time. So that's another beginner's trap. Like, you think you're getting more defensive, but really you're not versus weapons that matter. I'm not one of these people who thinks that they're going to implement PvE. From what I understand, this being an MMO, the way I understand it is it would probably put too much strain on the server's processing power to have difficult opponents in a 3D space, in a flight simulator, in addition to running everything else. I could be wrong. That could just be a nonsense speculation from the GSF forums. But it made sense to me when I read it. But beyond that, like I said, it needs a reward structure that ties into the main game. I want legacy armor. I want mounts. I want more decorations, not just the starfighters that I have up on my balcony right now. That kind of thing will get people playing it. People aren't going to play it just to max out their ships. And, well, people like me played it to max out their ships and then done with it. I honestly haven't played GSF in like 2 months, which is sad. I enjoy playing it. I have found more rewarding things to do with my time, even though I enjoy it. Okay, what other problems does this game have? Well, as long as we're talking about... I mentioned engine problems earlier. They need some more robust tools. I mentioned that this game does not have offensive dispel. It needs that. It would be very useful if like a boss had a buff on him that you had to purge off of him, or else he did X. I'm just throwing out the most generic example possible, but you could see what kind of things that would open up. Ads that have things you can dispel, or like in WoW it's called spell steal, buffs that you can steal and put on yourself to make an encounter more, I don't know, interesting. Having something in like a mind control, and I'm going to switch over to WoW to show you. It's not... One thing I've noticed in this game, that's actually striking to me the more I think about it. Outside of GSF and the on-rails space PvE on your class ship, there is no instance in this game in which you do not control your character. So, for example, let me switch over really quick. Right, for example, there is no instance in this game where you can do something like this. You will note that I am not controlling my Death Knight, I am controlling a toy. This kind of thing is super common in WoW. You can even give it, like, it has its own unique ability. It's just a toy. You're meant to play Destruction Derby with it, with other people who have it. But this is a cool reward. People use this. This is more than just, you know, glowing eyes. It's more than just another outfit they can put in their cartel market. This is a kind of thing they can sell. But the game engine needs the functionality to allow you to not control this guy, but to control this guy. That opens up a whole swath of things they could do in PvE and PvP. I would imagine that if there were ever a mind control spell that gets put into SWTOR, it would probably be given to sorcerers. It makes sense thematically. God, I don't even know if mind control is specifically in WoW anymore versus players. But, like, there are mind control alikes still in WoW. Like, warlocks can enslave demons. This Death Knight, I can control undead. Then they just appear as a pet. So let me switch back. Anyway, that's the kind of thing that I want SWTOR's engine to be able to handle. I want to, every once in a while, not have to control my own character. I believe WoW refers to it as vehicles. Or at least, I mean, but I'm pretty sure that vehicles were implemented in Wrath, and that kind of functionality existed before Wrath. Wrath was just when they just went overboard with it and started putting it in encounters and stuff. It honestly made the game more fun and interesting. Gameplay variation is key to making an MMO interesting to me. Alright, well, they added a mini Hutball game as a decoration in the PvP vendor in 3.2. Does it have any functionality, or does it just sit there? Because I mean, and by functionality, I don't mean does it act like the slot machine, can you click it and get an item? That's like pretty bare bones and not interesting. If it does, you know, if it does have any functionality whatsoever, then cool, that's like the first step to making to this feature that I want. Yeah, exactly. When is 3.2 coming? I hear it's coming in April. I'm not sure that they've announced an official date. You can click on it, then it gives you the throw Hutball ability. And I guess that's alright. Can you actually, like, you can toss it to other players, but, like, how is that different from, say, I don't even know if I have, how is that different from, say, a Jawagram? Because that kind of thing's already in. I'm talking, like, because you already have the throw Hutball ability, is what I'm getting at. 12x buff. I don't think they've mentioned the 12x. I mean, they've talked about bringing it back. They've never said. Oh, if it was data mined, I have no idea. I don't tend to look at it. Look at the data mines. But they have not made any official announcement as to when they're bringing back 12x. They have mentioned that they want to, because apparently it was pretty successful. I did use it, I think, for my Jedi Sentinel. Anyway, no, I mean, that's cool. They put in that hut ball decoration. It's not quite the functionality I'm looking for. That's like a Jawagram or like a... What is that thing they did for Life Day? The snowball thing? It sounds like something like that, which is like it puts a flavor buff on you, and that's all the fun you can have with it. Because currently right now, other than like the banners, flavor buff seems to be like the only toys that they put into this game. And they're just not that interesting. I'm not saying that toys themselves are interesting. They're just, you know, cool little rewards that you can plug into things like cartel packs or like, you know, PvP cons or GSF or something like that. Excuse me. Anyway, I don't know. The long and short of my whole rant here about what I want them to put into their tool set is they need to invest some engineer time, some software engineer time into the engine to give the developers tools where they can do something like this. I didn't say I would be happy if 10 guilds killed it before it got before it got nerfed. I said I would be surprised. And that is still true, actually. It's not that I'm surprised that they killed it. I'm surprised it's taken so long to nerf. I can comment specifically as to the data mines on the nerfs. Nerfs for Revan, I think, were data mined in 3.2. And honestly, it's about time. I cannot believe it has taken this long. Especially since the rumors are we're getting Nightmare in like end of May, early June-ish. I mean, how can I be surprised? I mean, I don't have that attitude about it, I guess. I don't understand. They've not communicated their philosophy with making this tier the way it is. So it's hard for... I can only say I'm surprised in as much as if I were making the decisions, I would have nerfed it in like January, February at the latest. Like, it definitely would not have ever gotten to the point that it has. But that's me. I don't know what went into the decision making for making this tier the way it is. I'm very happy, by the way, that there are 10 guilds that have cleared it. Thing is, those 10 guilds are Nightmare guilds, not hard mode guilds. And that's an abysmal clearance rate, given that kind of context. So I guess that's my answer for you. Please keep feeding me questions, because this is actually getting pretty decent. Well, as long as we're going Wall of Crazy time, what with my engine changes and all, let's talk about a few more things. I kind of think they should change the energy system of either bounty hunters or agents. I would go with bounty hunters because, I don't know, I'm just partial that way. Other things WoW does better that could improve this game, oh god. Let's switch back over and I'll give you a list. We were just talking about resource systems, so let's talk about resource systems. So way back when in WoW, pretty much everybody but warriors and rogues and feral druids use mana. They've since taken mana away from hunters, and they've made mana superfluous to DPS. Basically, the only people who care about mana now are healers. The interesting thing there is, as far as I know, I don't play a monk and I know almost nothing about them. Pretty sure every healer uses mana. Anyway, what I'm getting at is the resource systems in WoW are a lot more interesting than heat in energy. For one thing, I mean, let's take, in my opinion, the most interesting resource system in this game, the Death Knight. Death Knight has 6 runes. They're all different types: 2 blood, 2 frost, 2 unholy. Spending runes generates runic power, which goes from 0 to 100. Some abilities use runes, some abilities use runic power. Death Coil, for example, uses runic power. Most of your strikes, however, use runes. They use any kind of combination, and depending on what spec you are, blood, frost, or unholy, certain strikes can use different runes spec to spec. And you, I don't know. This is all getting very complicated. In lieu of giving you an in-depth overview of what the Death Knight class is, this is a very interesting resource system. You know what's not interesting? You know what's really not interesting? Heat. Heat's not interesting. Heat is, if you go over 40, you fucked up. That's it. This whole section of my bar may as well not even exist. Yes, I can go over if I'm bursting and I have a cooldown to get me back under, if I have vent heat up, or if I have TSO to make myself not go over 40. Yes, I can burst then. Still not interesting. I really don't care. It's very yawn. There are no interesting decisions with heat. Not really. The interesting decision is, do I press an ability that costs heat, or do I rapid shot? That's it. In contrast, the rune system for Death Knights, and I didn't even go into like death runes and shit like that. The rune and runic power system for Death Knights is a lot more interesting and a lot more, I don't know, interactive. The things you do to make your runes recharge are active. Depending on what talents you choose, either your runes recharge faster when you spend runic power, or they may have a chance of recharging instantly when you spend runic power, or the other option is you build stacks when you spend runic power, and you can consume those stacks to instantly generate runes. That's cool. I like that a lot. That's interesting. I can make decisions based on fight to fight which one I should choose, or even moment to moment, like, should I spend this runic power to activate this depleted rune and get in an extra strike here, or do I let it go? What's not interesting is, oh fuck, I went over 40, I fucked up, time the rapid shot. And yes, Happy Swiss, you are correct, it is also the agent. The agent's energy is also boring. The interesting thing about energy for the agent is when I first started playing this game, I thought, oh hey, this is exactly like Rogue. It's not like Rogue. Rogue doesn't get penalized in WoW with slower energy regeneration when they spend too much. It just constantly regenerates at the same rate, no matter what level it's at. So yeah. Honestly, you don't have to... This is not a heat bar, it's an energy bar. It's just, and commandos, or troopers do not have a ammo bar, it's just an energy bar. It's the same resource system for, I don't know, 8 advanced classes, I guess. I don't know. That's one thing that I can think of that WoW does better, that this game should emulate. And I'm saying they should just steal ideas, or at least if they're like self-conscious about stealing ideas, at least, I don't know, come up with something more interesting than this. I know, I can't even tell you where I heard this, but somebody said before 3.0 launched that there was some buzzing about them wanting to change the heat system. I would heavily, heavily, heavily encourage that, because it is boring. even if you just change it for, say, mercenaries and commandos, that would be interesting at least. That would give some distinction between the two classes. I don't talk about, let's say, force because it's whatever. From what I understand, though, Assassin's force bar is basically also just an energy bar. I mean, I could imagine a lot of ways where it could get fucked up, but, like, I have a non-zero amount of confidence in their creativity and their implementation. It would be, honestly, those kinds of changes, those are what I expect out of an expansion. I mean, I guess for a $20 expansion, this whole thing, the combat proficiencies, I guess for a $20 expansion, that's pretty good. Didn't really change a whole lot. Didn't really change how any class plays. I mean, I mentioned being dissatisfied with this before the launch, when they were going over it in those streams. I don't know. It's really whatever. You need to change the game more to retain players, keep things fresh, keep things interesting. All right, but the initial question was, what does WoW do better? Well, no, I disagree with that, Cephas. Cephas says, let's be real, Disciplines wasn't anything new, just streamline it for bads. I disagree. There wasn't anything interesting about the old talent system. You pick the cookie cutter talents, or you messed up. It was a beginner's trap, really. You had to pass a knowledge gate. You had to pass a knowledge gate in order to play the game. So I can't really say that I'm with you in defending the old talent trees. Oh no, they. Okay. Oh my god, it's Chad says, easier to balance if they sure are taking their time to rebalance things. I agree they're taking their time. Conceptually, I can see that it is easier to balance. Because the changes you make to one tree cannot possibly affect another. Problem is, yes, they are taking a hell of a long time to balance things. Honestly, and this is something I've said, I believe I've said on stream before, but if I haven't, well, here goes. Almost every balance change they've made since the launch of 3.0, with the exception of like really non-controversial things like buffing the damage of a mortal juggernaut, almost every balance change they've made has made the game worse. They lowered IO's damage, but they didn't lower it enough, so made the game kind of better, kind of not. They are gutting Sorcerer. Sorcerer has one viable spec for DPS, and they're basically deleting it. So you will not see a Sorcerer in serious high-end PvE unless that gets changed. Madness is trash, and after this patch, Lightning will be trash. Well, they did change the skill system, Happy Swiss. I know you put in 7 points instead of 46, but like those 7 points are available in every tree. This is what I mean when I say they can make balance changes. Like, I don't know. Say Shoulder Cannon for AP specifically is doing too much damage. You change this talent that increases the damage dealt by Shoulder Cannon. You just change that. Well, Cephas says, welcome to the Mara world. Sort of, not really. Annihilation actually does good damage. The problem is nobody wants to play it. Also, it's melee, so even if it does good damage, it's melee, and you won't do that damage. I mean, that's the problem of the tier, though, not necessarily class design. Well, Slash, I mean, that's a common criticism, but I don't think you ever see people who Actually, I don't think you ever see the developers who make those changes play the game on their stream. He says, to give you guys context, for those of you watching the VOD, watching the dev streams, it looks like they have no clue. Not saying this is a troll. I'm genuinely curious at this point as to whether they play the game. I am sure they play the game. They have, like... I mean, it's like an open secret that I've been to Bioware before, just for separate things. They have like a leaderboard for their game, like of who plays the most and stuff like that, and I think it's like a weekly thing. I'm not really sure. It's been explained to me before at like Cantina tours. So they do play the game. That's like a silly, unfair criticism. The thing, and I think the reason they get that kind of rap is on the dev streams they have to appeal to the lowest common, or maybe it's like unfair to say they appeal to the lowest common denominator, but I don't know, maybe that is what they do. If they want to have an expert player on their stream, they could just like invite somebody over there to play for them or host their stream. That's not what they do those streams for. They do those streams to interact with the community and to push information out to us, not necessarily to show off their skills. How can they possibly implement some of these changes? Completely ruin a class to the point no one plays it. Well, I can't offer any defense of, say, for example, what they're doing to Sorks or what they did to Pyro. Everybody's, like, even the people who are complaining the most about what they're doing to Sorks, which I would be one of them if I played one, even the people complaining about that would agree that Force Storm does too much damage, and it's silly that it's part of the single target rotation. It seems to me that the way to fix that is to make Recklessness not work on Force Storm. Because outside of that, from what I understand, Lightning single target's damage is fine, especially for a burst spec. In fact, it's probably lower than AP's for a burst spec single target, not taking into account Force Storm. So I don't actually understand why they're also nerfing their single target damage output. It doesn't make sense to me. So no, I cannot offer any defense of the combat team such as it is with respect to what they're doing to Sorks. Nor can I fathom why they did what they did to Pyro. And yes, Ghost Mirror, I also want Pyro back to a functional spec. I'm also getting bored of AP, but I have to play AP because I can't play Pyro. It's just the way it is. It is good news, and I mentioned this before, in 3.2 they are bending over backwards to try to get Pyro to be playable again. They wouldn't have to do that if they just took my suggestion and reverted the Flame Barrage change, and then balanced the damage from there. Does it have too much for a burst spec? Because I don't know. I don't go nitty-gritty into parses to see who's not using Force Storm or whatever, but I think without Force Storm it's probably fine. Oh, hell no, I don't. Holy Diver, I do not think they should bring back class reps. I think that was a failed experiment. And yes, I agree, Cephas. They should buff Madness. They should buff Madness. Madness has crap damage. I'm sure their fear is they make it too good in PvP. Oh well. In fact, I just had a little Twitter exchange with Milas about this in the last day or so. What did he say? I have no idea how to... He said, I have no idea how to fix it without getting rid of dot spread. Any buffs would make the spec broken in PvP. I mean, I don't necessarily agree. Like, Force Lightning Force Lightning single target. You could easily just buff that. In fact, if you just wanted to Band-Aid fix Madness without touching anything else, buff Force Lightning. It's single target. You can't possibly spread it. If you buff up Force Lightning to the point where it does competitive sustained damage with other sustained specs, Sorks are fine. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, chat. I don't foresee any problems with buffing Force Lightning. I kind of disagree. I like dot spread. In fact, let me go a step further. Let's slip back into WoW. You're never going to get rid of dot spread, I don't think. It's actually a good idea. You just have to be smarter about implementing it. Honestly, because dot spread is in WoW. Look at this. Look at the name of this talent or this ability. Every Death Knight has this ability, by the way. And in case you don't want to read it, deals shadow damage to all enemies within 15 yards and spreads your existing diseases from your target to all of their enemies hit. For reference, the diseases that your Death Knight has, those are its dots. Also refreshing them to full duration. Also increases the healing done by your next death strike, but whatever. That's irrelevant. Dot spread's in other games. Dot spread's fine. Maybe make it, if you want a dot spread, maybe it should be more like IO has the dot spread. But then again, people complain about that all the time. I don't know. Not every dot spread is equal. Deathfield is a strong dot spread, maybe the strongest. Is Vengeful Slam something people are really concerned about? I don't know, is the new Flamethrower dot spread something people are really concerned about? If you don't know, in 3.2, Flamethrower is going to spread Incendiary Missile, which I wasn't really asking for that. I don't really need more AoE damage in that spec. I need more single target sustained, but that's neither here nor there. Force Lightning got a big enough damage buff to make it competitive. You start leaving other abilities out of the rotation because it out-damages them. Like, what would you leave out? How many of your dots would you leave out, for example? Like, honestly, I would be fine if you just don't cast Force Leech outside of PvP. Or I guess you could just buff Force Leech, but then you run into the problem of doing too much self-healing. But you could nerf the talent that buffs the self-healing. I mean, it doesn't seem like an insurmountable problem to me. Dot spread is not, in my opinion, keeping that class from its full potential. But, I mean, I don't play the class, not really, so I could be wrong. Alright, sorry about that. When I switched over to WoW again, it told me it crashed, and then it didn't crash, but when I tried to switch back, then it really crashed. Anyway, let's see. The problem with buffing Force Lightning is it makes DPS rotation for Madness too simple. If you buff Force Lightning any more than it is now without buffing Lightning Strike, you can completely ignore Lightning Strike and spend Force Lightning only using proc on Demolish. Like I said, it's a Band-Aid fix in lieu of a total redesign. I mean, that's just... It's the most obvious Band-Aid fix I can think of off the top of my head. You could buff Lightning Strike too. It's not a big deal. Or buff Force Leech. I don't care. Some combination of buffing their single target abilities has to work, right? I simply refuse to believe that because of dot spread, Madness is not allowed to do competitive damage. Quote, as someone who mains a Sork, the dot spread on Madness is not its issue. AoE-wise, its damage is on par with Lightning, and after 3.2 I think it'll be higher with the changes to Force Storm. It is purely the single target damage that needs to be fixed. Yes. I mean, most people would agree. But I don't, again, Cephas, I don't accept the premise that dot spread is what is preventing this spec from getting buffed. I mean, the implication there is that if you buff Madness's damage, you must buff Deathfield or its dots, which you don't necessarily have to do. I mean, I don't know, am I thinking about it wrong? Madness has several single target abilities. In fact, I don't think you can spread Demolish, can you? So that's one. Oh. Again, that's very nitty-gritty balance complaint type stuff. Only Regenerator and Affliction get spread. Buff Force Lightning and Lightning Strike. Yeah, I agree. I don't see what the big problem is. Here's my question. In the current PvP meta, are Madness Sorcerers able to confidently 1v1 somebody while also shitting out a bunch of damage to their teammates? Because if so, then I see the problem. But if they're not able to go into fight another guy and win while doing a bunch of damage to other people through Death Field, then it's fine and it needs to be buffed. You can't buff Lightning Strike because of... Yeah, you make the buff in the Madness tree. There's no reason why you can't make an ability in the Madness tree that buffs one ability for one spec. There's all kinds of... There's all kinds of stuff like that. Like, this thing affects Rail Shot. Doesn't affect Rail Shot for any other spec. Yeah, see, that's... What I think might be the problem is not the dot spread, but the self-healing, which... I don't know if that was a very good experiment for them. I think they may have gone overboard, maybe? But I don't think dots would lose priority even if they buffed Force Lightning and Lightning Strike. Because dots are always worth casting because they're the highest damage per cast time ability you can use. I mean, no one Lightning Strike is going to outdamage a full Affliction or a full Creeping Terror or a Demolish. Why buff classes since they want classes to pull relatively the same amount of DPS pre 3.0? Well, this gets into a little interesting discussion. If they wanted to do that, the ops team did not design things that way. I am very confident in saying that if we were all doing 1,000 less DPS than we're doing right now, we would not have killed this content. Just the way it is. Probably would have killed Malifar. Probably Sparky too. Everything else is up in the air. Like, I'm sure you could struggle through it. Like, really struggle through it. But honestly, I don't see Revan dying if the DPS ceiling is 4K. I don't see it. So, if that is still the combat team's goal to bring us all down to 4K, then they've really missed the mark because nobody's at 4K. As far as I'm aware, even like the specs that are in the toilet, like I think, what's the lowest parsing spec? Is it lethality? Something like that? Even that has got to be doing at least 42, 43. Happy Swiss says you can get 900 to 1,000 HPS while doing DPS. I assume you're talking about Madness, which, yeah, that could be an issue. It should probably... If it's the self-healing that is keeping Madness from doing competitive damage, then they should just remove it. And I'm confident that any Madness player would agree with me in saying they should remove it. It was a neat little experiment, but take it away. I mean, outside of Force Leech, I guess, because that's like the whole flavor of that ability. But Force Leech is a cast time thing. You don't have it up all the time. It's on cooldown. Your dot's just giving you health. It should probably go away if that's keeping it from doing damage. Madness fix for starters. Reduce stacks of Wrath needed. Gain from Force Lightning from 4 to 3. I disagree with that change because it encourages unintuitive behavior. In fact, I don't like anything that encourages clipping. Like, I don't like flamethrower clipping, I don't like ravage clipping, and I didn't like force lightning clipping. It's not... Yes, it is more skillful to do that. It is not intuitive. And you should not have to know that you're supposed to stop your channeled ability to do maximum damage. That's not good for inexperienced players. And there's better ways you can make the spec more interesting or difficult than by enforcing a stupid clipping mechanic. Well, the real question is, when they came up with those numbers, what gear were they wearing? Honestly, when they come up with any numbers, you really want to know their methodology. Yes, clipping is involved in jug DPS, and it's stupid. They need to fix the ravage. They just need to fix ravage so that clipping just isn't a thing. It should not be a thing. It doesn't need... The game doesn't need to be easier, Adosa. It just needs to have... Unintuitive mechanics should not be encouraged. It's not good design. And yes, removing clipping nominally makes the game easier, but there are ways you can make the game harder, but that do not involve silly little tricks. I mean, pulling off an ultra combo in Killer Instinct is difficult, but it doesn't involve you going against what was intended in your abilities design. I don't know. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I'm just talking about from a design perspective. Unless anybody's got any more questions. Like I said, I'm alone today. For the 13th episode, it's gone alright. I've kind of stalled out every once in a while, but kept it going. I really wish I hadn't crashed, so now I'm going to have to edit the VOD and stitch things together. The real problem is that ranged DPS are doing more damage than melees, while melees take more damage and deal with more mechanics. Correct. That's a serious problem. And no, not except Master Blaster. It's definitely worse to be melee on Master Blaster than it is to be ranged. Can you plug your show? I'll plug your show. I'll plug your show right before I sign off anyway. Am I ready for 6 months of no Nightmare? No, I think Nightmare is coming end of May, early June. Maybe end of June. Somewhere around that area. Problem is, I don't really want Nightmare. Not really. Kind of tired. Just went through progression, don't really want to do it again. But that's me. I mean, I'm an old man as far as raiders go. I'm 28. Most of y'all have you haven't traded your passion for glory yet. Not that I don't have passion, like there's probably no question about that. I just want to get my loot and go home. Once us PvPers get a new arena, you guys should be due for Nightmare. It's not really the way it works, but yeah, I mean, whatever. The thing is, all right, I'm gonna call the PvPers out just a little bit, and only a little bit because I do sympathize. Every balance change is a PvP change. You just don't look at it that way, it seems. And in fact, I would wager most balance changes are made for PvP. Like, to the extent that AP got, or that shoulder cannon got nerfed, it was definitely for PvP, because you could just nuke somebody down before they could respond. So, I don't know. Every time they make a class balance change, that's specifically for PvP. Okay. Anyway, the reason why I say I do sympathize with PvPers, though, is because of, as I mentioned earlier, the queuing system. They haven't announced anything as far as whatever they've got in the works. It's better than cross-server. So yeah, playing against the same people over and over and over again, I'm sure it's rough. I sense that the Ziost like boss is going to be the ops team's way of saying we gave you content. No, I don't think so. What I understand of the way the ops team works, excuse me, is that like one person basically designs and implements a boss. I mean, it goes boss by boss, right? People are assigned, okay, you get this boss, you get that boss. If more than one person designed the new boss, then, I don't know, I guess I'd be surprised. They've got to have something else cooking, right? In fact, I'm like almost certain that they have something else cooking. It's just that they can't talk about it ever, which sucks. And I'm sure that's mostly a marketing thing. Better than the cross server, I guess that's test server. Right now it is. Although when GSF really, really needed testing, we couldn't get people on it. So, sucked. Revan must be multiple people design. I can confirm to you that it was not. Well, I mean, I'm sure they all help each other. I'm certain that they all help each other, but, like, it's basically one person mainly per fight. Most important of them is boss backstab. Can't kite anymore. Backstab is perfect solution. I actually think that that was put in just to be funny. It does have a lot of interaction on Revan, though. I mean, Rugar backstabs you because he's the backstabber. Revan backstabs you because of the heartbeat. You have to be sure you're facing the right way. I mean, makes sense to me. It makes it harder, keeps the tanks on their toes. I'm cool with it. Well, yeah, but not every boss in the... He says not really. On old bosses, you control mechanics by boss kiting. Well, they didn't put it on every boss. You can kite, like, Torque right now. If your co-tank dies and you're the only one tanking it, you just start running around. You'll hit you less, and you might survive the debuff. This is a far more interactive show than I've ever done before. Mess to all people, it has consequences. Hey, Antosno. Alright, well, I've basically run through all the topics I wanted to talk about. We're probably going to do another show pretty soon, since I couldn't scrounge up my usual co-hosts. Since I couldn't scrounge up my usual co-hosts this time. For flying solo, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I mean, like I said, stalled out, had to drink a lot. But it turned out alright, thanks to you in the chat. I do appreciate all of your questions. But for now, I think that's it for me. In about 26 minutes, y'all should switch over to the Corellian Run radio stream. And Heather, go ahead and give that link in chat. You also switch over to the Corellian Run radio stream where they will be interviewing Eric Musco. So that's cool of him to come in on a Sunday. Oh, Heather, I expect you to give him a little shit for stealing my show name. In fact, like, please make that one of the questions. Please. Anyway, alright, there you go. Twitch.tv/Corellian Run Radio, all one word. And check that out in, like I said, 26 minutes or so. But other than that, I have got no other announcements. I do believe we are wrapping up at least one lockout tonight. We've already done Revan this week. We just have to go kill Cortani. Actually, I might kill Cortani twice. Might get it on my Juggernaut. But it'll only be after I kill it on my Power Tech. So that could be cool. I need a chess piece on my Juggernaut anyway. Besides that, I have no other announcements. So, thank you all for watching. See y'all next time.